I want everyone to know that they can do things that bring them joy, but don't do anything else. Like, I think another problem we as a society have is that we get a hobby and we want to turn that hobby into a hustle. But what about hobby for hobby's sake? What about hobby for a hobby's sake? Welcome back to Unfiltered Yaps. If this is your first time, thank you so much for joining me. This is the podcast where we show up for ourselves and for each other. I'm your host, Shanae. And as always, we're going to keep it honest, we're going to keep it messy, and we're going to keep it real. Today's episode is about hobbies and not just the kind of things that we do, to have fun, but more of the things that nourish our souls, the things that remind us who we are, the things that fulfill us. I think a lot of the time, speaking from my own personal experience, as adults, we kind of forget about nourishing ourselves in ways such as hobbies. Um, and we forget that hobbies can be and are very much a form of self care. And we should be doing more hobbies and just spending time doing things that bring us joy. Um, and so this week I asked you guys, what hobbies have you discovered that feel surprisingly therapeutic or healing? And why do you think they have had that effect on you? The first answer here is adult coloring books. They give me a chance to be a child again. And I know y'all seen on TikTok they be coloring. But my friend also colors or got into it as a potential hobby, and we, like, my friend group spent the weekend together and we colored, and I was hooked. From that moment I forgot how therapeutic it was to just color. um and I went on a whole binge. I brought books, I brought all of the markers, and it's just so fun to sit down and pick colors that speak to you and color in a page. And this person said adult coloring books. I don't know if the ones that I have are adult or not, but they're like cute and cozy, and it just feels good sometimes to just sit down and color in a coloring book, as childish, quote unquote, as that may be. The next one here is gardening is the one that I recently found therapeutic, but I have to do it alone. In the evening when it's not that hot and when I can have a really mellow playlist in my headphones. It's nice without music too, but I found that if it's noon, hot, and or windy, or I have to chat with the neighbors, I enjoy it far less. It's therapeutic, growing things, harvesting things, eating things you worked for, and yet still having to let go of the outcome because you never know what will yield and what will be sacrificed to the snail and slug gods. It's a slow hobby for sure. I don't have a green thumb. Let's start there. I have killed a cactus and that is very hard to do, but I can see how gardening could be therapeutic. I am not really a nature girly, but when I am outside and I am in nature, it is very calming and peaceful. And I could see how getting your hands in some dirt and like seeing the fruit of your labor, especially because it is such a slow hobby, could be fun and therapeutic for your soul. So while it's not for me, it could be for one of you. And so, maybe look into that. What hobbies have you discovered that feel surprisingly therapeutic or healing? Baking bread. Kneading the dough is very soothing while also being somewhat physical. Okay, y'all was going crazy with the bread during the pandemic, so I'm kind of not surprised that this is an answer. Um, Again, not for me. I'm not a baker. I feel like it's too much science. And I cook until I feel my ancestors tell me to stop. And so baking is not that for me, but I do watch a lot of videos on TikTok of people baking. And again, something else that I can see how therapeutic it could be to use your hands and, make something, and the sourdough starter and all of it. Like I see the appeal. It is just not my thing. But again, a good hobby. Who am I to say what brings someone joy or is soothing for their soul? What hobbies have you discovered that feel surprisingly therapeutic or healing, and why do you think they have that effect? Um, and we have knitting and crocheting. I'm still at the beginner level, but once you get comfortable with the pattern, you kind of just get in a groove, and it's so satisfying to see your progress. I've tried to knit before. I was not good at it at all, but I feel like I always see videos of, I don't want to say old people, but like it's usually old people and they're sitting there and it's a mindless thing that they can do, and like, you know, watch a show, and then at the end of all of that effort you have a hat, you have a blanket, you have, whatever, like the limits are, the options are limitless. And as long as your brain can kind of think it up, you can make it. And so I think that's a beautiful hobby to have. The next answer here is junk journaling. The process of cutting, arranging, gluing is very relaxing, but since the journal is mainly made of junk, I'm always scavenging for cute garbage, napkins, packaging, receipts, pamphlets, posters, etc. It has made me notice little beautiful things more often, and is also a great way to record memories, reflect, and be grateful for them. Okay, junk journaling is another thing that I've discovered on TikTok. I don't think I'm creative enough to do that. Like, my brain does not work in that way. And like, I'm not saying that to say like, oh, I'm not creative and I can't do something like that. Like, woe is me. Like, my brain really just does not work in that way. To take something that is junk and turn it into a beautiful page, and you know, layer this thing over that thing, and that's not my forte. But I do think it's a really cute thing, and I like what this person said about how it makes them notice the little things, because I think from what I see in the videos that I've watched about junk journaling, you really have to have an eye for that to be like, "Oh," and also the memory part of it, to be like, "Oh, I'm hanging out with my friend today. We went to this place to eat. I'll keep the receipt because that receipt can go into my junk journal. We passed this. I don't know. We passed this thing, and someone handed me a pamphlet, and we didn't go to the thing on the pamphlet, but it's making me think about the day that I spent with my friend. Let me put the and to put all of those things together and turn it into something is like beautiful, especially because for me the junk journaling doesn't have any words, and so it really is all about the emotion of it, the memory of it, and to then see that page and like think of that memory. You know what they say, a picture is worth a thousand words. So I do think it's a really cute activity, and I think for some of y'all maybe this could be a new hobby. Um the next answer here is calligraphy. It's zen. It makes me accept imperfection. It feels incredibly orgasmic for my brain. I I have chicken scratch handwriting. So calligraphy could never be for me. But it is, again, clearly I live on TikTok. I do see people, maybe not. calligraphy specific videos, but people who write things in aesthetically appeasing ways, and the loop de loops, and you know everything, and it's beautiful. But what I really liked about this answer is the person saying it makes me accept imperfection, because I do believe it's all done with like ink, like a fountain pen, and you put so much time and like the way you swoop your letters, and if you mess up one thing, you're going to start over. I probably would, which is why I have no business doing calligraphy, but I can see how learning all of these techniques and allowing yourself not to harp over making it perfect could be freeing, could be nourishing for the soul, especially if you are maybe a perfectionist. Um okay, this next answer made me laugh so much. What hobbies have you discovered that feel surprisingly therapeutic or healing, and why do you think they have that effect? Playing violent video games. They really bring me down from the anger induced stress I experience, and just seeing in game and affected health, popping the blood filled balloons when my character punches someone else is so satisfying and relaxing. This made me laugh because I do like to game, and we'll get into my hobbies in a bit, but I don't I don't like the I don't want to fight. I don't want to I don't want to shoot. I don't want to stab. Like it makes me so, it brings me so much anxiety to play games like that. And so seeing someone be like, "Yeah, I need a way." And I get it. It's a healthy ish. I mean, healthier alternative for sure, but a healthy-ish way to release your anger, especially again as a millennial, like a lot of us are working jobs that our parents didn't work. Like, older generations in our family maybe didn't work these jobs. So also don't quite understand what it is that we do, and the only other people you can probably vent to are your other millennial friends who understand, and it's like I need to get this anger out of my body. And how do I do that? Like, I'm going to turn this game on. I'm going to shoot some people. I'm going to I'm going to punch them until their bar is depleted, and that makes me feel better. That maybe this person is imagining the person that they want to be beaten up as this other character, and if so, kudos to you, because whatever works for you, honey. And then the last one here: what hobbies have you discovered that feel surprisingly therapeutic or healing, and why do you think they have that effect? And this person said water painting. Watercolor painting. Of all of the art mediums I've tried, it's been the most relaxing for me because the best results often come from just painting loose and freely. It's nice to let go of control. And what I noticed from a lot of these answers is what makes the hobbies feel therapeutic is that aspect of letting go, that aspect of control. And for me and my hobbies, um, that is what I enjoy as well. I love a hobby that makes me cut my brain off. When my brain is off, I'm the most at peace. I have inner monologue. I know some people don't have that. And for me, my brain is always on. And not only is it on, but I am thinking through, planning, remembering, checking off multiple things at one time, all the time. And so last year, I took a mental health break from work, and from life, really. Um, and during that time, I was working with my therapist, and we were talking about what do I do for myself outside of work? And it was sad that my answer was nothing. I don't do anything. I, at the time, was very, very, very down bad. And I was scrolling through TikTok. Like, that was my hobby. That was what I was doing after work to take back some part of my life. I was scrolling for hours, going to sleep at the wee hours of the morning, getting up, working, and doing it like all over again every day. And my therapist kind of had to be like, "Girl, what do you like to do?" And at the time, a friend of mine had started reading again. She got back into reading and was kind of like, eh, same with me. And I think the same with a lot of other people that, like, oh, when I was a child, obviously you have so much free time that y- she was like, she would just read all the time. And she had kind of missed reading. And I realized I too like to read, and I couldn't remember the last time I read the last book I read. Um, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but my one of my old coworkers at an old job during college, so like predating what I do now, we would like read at work. We would be like doing our job, but like reading, and we would all be reading the same book. We were like sharing a we were sharing a Amazon Kindle account basically, and we were just all reading, and like it was so fun. And obviously I should not have been reading at work on the clock, but it reminded me like I love to read. I would read a book in a day or two, and what happened to me doing that? And so during my break, working with my therapist, I kind of got back into the things that I enjoyed doing. I read, I don't remember how many books I read last year. But during my break, I definitely read maybe 3 or 4 books, which were more books. I read more books in the 3 months I was on my leave of absence than I had read in years. When I was at that job reading at work, that was like 2015, 2016, maybe 2017. And so my break was last year, 2024. To not have read for that long because I got so enthralled in work was diabolical, honestly. And so, you know, again, working with my therapist, we started trying things really. I had like coloring with my friend that time. And so that was when I brought all my books, got all the markers. I brought myself like a PC basically, and I started gaming again. I started Now, I did say I would circle back to this. I do game, but I'm very much a cozy gamer, so I like things that don't rile up my anxiety. I Not during my break, but maybe like a couple of months before, like somewhere before my break, I had purchased a Switch. I'd also purchased a PS5, and I had these things, and I brought them because I knew I liked to do them, but I wasn't making time for them. And so during my break, I made time for gaming again. I am a Sims girly. And so I got back into playing The Sims. I learned how to mod my games. That was something I'd never done before and was the reason for me, getting a PC. So that way I could mod. And it was just so fun. I love going to the movies. I used to have AMC stubs before the pandemic, and I got it back during my mental health break so that way I could go to the movies. And it was so eye opening for me that, like, I threw all of these things that I love and enjoy to the wayside for what? To work? Ghetto. And don't get me wrong, like, I think I'm good at my job. I like what I do, but I was so work centered that I forgot to bring joy into my life. And having hobbies, finding my hobbies again helped me do that. It helped me learn what I did and didn't like. It gave me an outlet for hard days. You know, it there are times that I'm like, oh, this podcast is a hobby right now because I'm not making any money off of it. I'm doing this simply because I like to talk. I like to talk. I'm passionate about mental health. I think there is a huge gap between, like, having community, having people who understand you, and I wanted to make this podcast to do that, to fill that void. But this is very much a hobby. No one's forcing me to do this. I'm not getting paid again to be doing this. I'm doing this because work was over and I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to record my next episode. It was a long day, but I need to do something that's going to bring me joy. And talking, filming this podcast, sharing my opinions, getting responses, and sharing those responses brings me joy. It fills my soul. And, like, yes, today was hard, but recording this episode is making me feel good. It is bringing me back to myself and my values, and it is healing me, it's nourishing me, and that's important to have that outlet. Because had this been before my mental health break, I would have had a hard day at work and I would have came and I would have scrolled for hours, and I would have went to sleep at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and got up at 9 o'clock to start working all over again. And that wasn't healthy. And having hobbies just brings so much value. It helps raise your mental health. It helps fill your cup. And I want everyone to have that. I want everyone to feel that. And also, I want everyone to know that they can do things that bring them joy, but don't do anything else. Like, I think another problem we as a society have is that we get a hobby and we want to turn that hobby into a hustle. But what about hobby for hobby's sake? What about hobby for hobby's sake? Yes, something you love to do that brings you joy, is your passion, can also bring you money, but it shouldn't be done with the intent 100% focused on the money aspect, because then it's not fun. Then it's work. Then it's a job. And then you're still being work centered. And maybe you're not work centered as in the work that pays you your 9 to 5, but now you're work centered because you're turning your hobby into a hustle, which, honey, I don't have the, I don't have the, what's the word I'm looking for, you guys? I don't have the the energy, the pizzazz. I don't want to. I want to be soft. I want to be soft. Okay, that is my motto for 2025 and probably for 2026. I just want to be soft. And hustling is not soft. Hustling is hard work, and I don't want something that is supposed to bring me joy, something that is supposed to relax me, to now break down my central nervous system because I'm trying to turn it into something it doesn't need to be. And if it's going to be that, I want it to happen naturally. I want it to happen organically because the stars aligned for me, because oceans were moved, because that is what was in store for me, but not because I was like, "Oh, you know what? I like to talk and I'm going to do a podcast and I see people make money off of it and that is going to because that's not fun anymore." And so I say all that to say hobbies don't always have to be profitable. They don't always have to be useful in the tangible sense. And so if you don't have a hobby, if you don't have multiple hobbies, I encourage you, I implore you to take some of that hustle out of it, and what's something new that you can try that maybe it won't bring you joy, but at least you tried it and know that it doesn't. I want you guys to reclaim hobby and remove it from some of that hustle that I think has seeped into what a hobby is. But I also want you to remember that a hobby is a way to create space for yourself um in a world that doesn't always prioritize space for yourself. Um Again, no listener letters, but I'm going to keep asking. I'm going to keep begging because one day I'll get some and I can't wait to share them with you guys. If you want to send me a listener letter, please email me at unfilteredyaps@gmail.com. Listener letters can be about anything. You guys obviously don't know what topics I'm going to be talking about before I talk about them. And so if you want advice, if you want my 2 cents, if you want to share with others in the community, send a listener letter. I will read it on air. I will make sure to keep you anonymous and we can yap about it. Um okay, so the journal prompt for this week is: what hobby lights me up simply for the joy of doing it? And how can I make more space for that in my life? And as always, I will be answering on Substack, so please make sure that you subscribe. Every past journal prompt is on there, also with my answers. So if you've missed one for some reason, if you need inspiration for some reason, please go to my Substack and read what I've written. I try to be as raw and open and honest as possible because I want you guys to also be raw and open and honest with yourself if you choose to participate in the journal prompts. I also don't have any resources for you guys this week. Um, the only resource I can give you is TikTok. Get on TikTok and find you a hobby if you don't have one. DM me if you want to know more about the hobbies that I have and that I talked about. The hobbies that I have that I didn't talk about. Because I have more. Those were just the ones that came to mind when I was recording. But with that, I thank you guys for joining me today. As always, you can find the podcast at Unfiltered Yaps on TikTok and Instagram. And if you want to follow me personally, you can follow me at Shanae's Got Yaps, also on Instagram and TikTok. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, leave a review. I've gotten a few already. They really warm my heart. I appreciate them. I appreciate those of you who appreciate what I'm doing for my little hobby. And please subscribe to the Substack. When you subscribe, you get an email when I upload anything new, any new listener letters, any new journal prompts, new episodes. You get an email first. You heard it here first. um, Thank you guys so much for joining me. I love yapping with you guys. It really brings me so much joy. This is a hobby that I do not want to let go anytime soon. And I hope that you guys come back and join me. Thank you so much. Bye.